Hey everybody, Tekking101 here, and there's an election next week! Yes, an election. On one corner we have a guy that some people agree with, but other people don't, and on the other hand we have a guy that a lot of people agree with, but a lot of other people don't. Huh. I think I just completely understated the entire concept of political sciences. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about that, though. Because of the election, though, I thought about, hey, maybe I should do some videos based on some American forms of entertainment, because I'm always talking about anime. Don't get me wrong, anime, I'm still a huge fan of it. But there's some things that I want to talk about that inspired me maybe to get into anime that I wouldn't have if it wasn't for these factors. And there's two videos I'm going to make about this. The first video is the video we're going to be talking about today, are the 10 most badass American cartoons that I remember from my childhood. Now, in case you're unaware, a cartoon is to America as an anime is to Japan. Except with a lot less sex, gore, and violence, but that's beside the point. Wait a second, Tekking101. I thought Americans were only good at making great fast food products that'll clog your arteries and kill you 30 years before your natural expiration date. Yes, that is true, granted, but also don't count us out when it comes to making cartoons. Because we're pretty cool at that, too. One little note that I should probably mention, I'm picking cartoons that are more over, they are funny, but I'm not going to pick, SpongeBob, Fairly Odd Parents. I do love those cartoons when I was a kid, but they were more for just the humor side. This is going to be more of a, there's some other factor that goes along with it, and I'll get into each factor individually with each different show, but yeah, I've drawn this off long enough. Let's go. Number 10. All English dubbed anime. Okay, I know, I just said top 10 American cartoons, and my number 10 spot is anime. I had to put it in here, guys. I had to. Because a lot of the shows I grew up with, some of them may have not, I might have not have known they were anime at the time. I didn't really think about that stuff back then. I mean, when I'm watching Dragon Ball Z, I'm not thinking about, the animation style or which country it came from. I'm just like, oh, people are beating the shit out of each other. I'm into this. So, yeah, this is just number 10 spot just to clear out all the English dubbed anime that I remember growing up with as a child. Some highlights include, of course, Dragon Ball Z, Gundam. I'm not even into that. I'm not even into, like, mech animes that much, but I really love Gundam growing up. Yu Yu Hakusho was one. Like, later on, there was Naruto on Toonami. Just all these anime that I feel like they were such a big part of my childhood. If I didn't mention them at least a little bit, even the One Piece 4-Kid stuff, which I liked as a child. I mean, you can bash it all you want now, and I do, and I'm going to make another video based upon English dubbed anime, a full video later on about that. But as a kid, I really liked the English dub of One Piece. I even made a track of the opening theme song and listened to it whenever I wanted to on a little tape recorder. Yeah, I was pretty lame. Number 9. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is just something that's interesting. It pops up about every decade. There's some kind of reboot of it. The original series came out, I think, in 88 or 87, so that was way early that was even before my time. But I do know it was a big cultural hit back then. And then in 2003, there was a reboot series. And even this year, in 2012, there's a third reboot series going on. This stuff never ends. Also a bunch of movies, both live-action, animated, and specials as well. But the series I remember the most was the 2003 one, specifically from seasons 1 through 4. This is just a great series growing up. I was also a little bit alienated by that concept at first when I was a little kid. I actually remember when I was really little, my mom and me went to a garage sale and we picked up old VHS tapes from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles back in the first series, back in the 80s. And I remember watching it, and I remember thinking the animation was weird and it was a little older, but I just loved it to death. And then the 2003 series came out, and I loved that even more. It was just incredible. The animation style was perfected. I think where the 80s series was a little bit more based on comedy, the 2000 series was based more on action and just exciting. I mean, they went everywhere. They went into space. They went into different dimensions. It was just all this stuff like cavalcaded together. There was an additional series later on where it was kind of like a spin-off series where they go into the future, and I didn't really watch much of that, but that was just really cool that they did that. It was on for 8 seasons, I believe, and if that's the case, that was amazing, just right there. And it ended the series in probably the best way possible. It ended the series with a TV special, I think in 2010, called Turtles Forever. And this is probably one of the most brilliant things you could do with this series. They actually had a different dimension plot where the 2003 era Turtles meet the 1980s era Turtles. That was fucking brilliant. I remember when that first came out in 2010, I haven't watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in like 4 years, and I'm like, I'm watching this. This is freaking awesome. So yeah, number 9, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, awesome cartoon, huge part of my childhood. Number 8, Gargoyles. Okay, so this is the only cartoon that originally aired on Disney that made it to this list. Mostly because, as I stated previously, I'm not going to try to make a list just based on funny cartoons. There has to be some kind of action subplot or something extra going on, and the action is definitely heavy in Gargoyles. It was kind of like the version of Batman animated series to Disney Channel, because Batman, the animated series, was a huge big success on Cartoon Network at the time, and I believe Disney wanted to try something else with that. Not something just funny and kooky, but also something kind of serious too. And Gargoyles definitely worked. Even the opening title will get you psyched up for this stuff. It's really heavy on like Celtic mythology and like all that stuff. Just love it. The Gargoyle mythos is great. They put them right in Manhattan, which is awesome. I love how they named each of the different gargoyles by different sections of Manhattan. Just so awesome stuff about this series. I don't remember quite a lot about it because I don't remember watching it very heavily as a child. I kind of got into it a little bit later on watching the reruns, but I do remember how I first got introduced to it. I was at Burger King one night, and Burger King was handing out these little toys with meals because you know that's how they did it. So I remember getting these little toys of this cartoon Gargoyles, which I've never even seen before. And I remember playing with the toys first, and then later on I remember watching the cartoon reruns on Disney Channel, and I just loved it. So yeah, kind of a odd introduction to the series that I remember, but I do remember it quite well, and it definitely deserves a spot on this list. Number 7. Jackie Chan Adventures. This series was just awesome. I kid you not. As a child, this is something that I became obsessed over. Just because of the concept itself just seems kind of funny. Like, let's take action movie star Jackie Chan, who I haven't even seen any of his movies prior to that. I never saw Rush Hour. I never saw any of his famous works. And this is how I got introduced to Jackie Chan. And I'm not even really a huge fan of his movies. I've never even seen any movies after this. But this show, I adored it so much. The concept is actually really odd. It's just about Jackie Chan going around collecting different artifacts from Chinese mythology, and then after that's over, he fights demons from Chinese mythology, and then after over, he goes back to the artifacts again, and then after that's over, he goes to the Japanese mythology, I think. Anyway, it's really cool. It's really heavy on both subject matters, and and also I kind of thought I was an outcast here because I'm watching this kind of strange cartoon show that's based on some other countries. Like there's Japanese and Chinese characters all over the show, and I'm thinking like, oh, I must be kind of odd for watching this. But I knew kids even well into middle school that still watch this show, so I know I wasn't alone. But it was an awesome show. Number 6, Xiaolin Showdown. Okay, kind of similar to Jackie Chan Adventures, where it's based on a more Asian-type background culture mythos, and also it involves the main characters going around and collecting artifacts with magical abilities from that mythos. But I just love Xiaolin Showdown so much. I adored it mostly because of that reason. The abilities that each of the artifacts had, called Shen Gong Wu, a lot of them were unique and cool. I love the main villain, Jack. I love how each of the different main characters came from different walks of life. Omi was more of a Tibetan Chinese Buddhist monk culture. Kimiko, I believe, was from Japanese. Clay was from America, and Raimundo was from Rio de Janeiro, I believe. They had a lot of intricate plots here. Probably my favorite plot was the Yin Yang World arc, where they go into this parallel universe where everyone's evil, which is straight out of Star Trek, but I love it so much. The series ended on a really strong note, but it kind of left you wanting more. That's how good it was. The ending of the show, the last arc anyway, was really built up to such great lengths, and at the very end, you were so hyped for what's next, and then canceled. But there's not to fret yet, because I don't know exactly what stage it's in yet, but I have heard that with utmost certainty that Xiaolin Showdown is going to have a reboot in the next couple of years. So I'm not sure if it's going to be based on like taking off where the original left off. I'm not sure if a lot of people would remember the show that they could do that, or if they were just going to reboot the entire series. But they did say that new episodes are being produced, so that's definitely something I'm going to look forward to in the future. Number 5, Ben 10. Okay, so Ben 10 is probably one of the more recent cartoons on my list. I believe at least one version of it is still running on Cartoon Network as of right now. And it came on the air a little bit later into my life when I wasn't really into cartoons anymore. But it was kind of like my guilty pleasure watching it, because I really did love this show. And I probably would put it up higher on the list if it wasn't for that reason, where I was watching it kind of at the end of my interest in that kind of medium. Every time I do anime, that happens, and even when I'm doing American cartoons, the pictures are rebelling against me. I think they know I'm turning on them, and they're lashing out at me. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, Ben 10. Freaking love Ben 10. When I was a kid and I first watched this, I was probably close to 2005, so I was probably close to 12, 13 years old, you know, going into middle school, and I watching a cartoon like this, a lot of people actually make fun of me for that, but I don't really care, because this show was awesome. I even remember watching a little bit more into Alien Force, which is the sequel series, and still loving that. After that, I didn't really get more interested, but I come back to it from time to time, going back to see like a really cool episode people are recommending, and you know, I still love it, and I think it kind of, not so much anime, but the thing that Ben 10 has going for it is it kind of bridges the line between a cartoon and a comic. As opposed to all the other ones like Xiaolin Showdown, Jackie Chan Adventures, which were focused on more Asian-type mediums. This one focuses on comic books of American variety, and it works, like considerably it works. I mean, they go into some stuff in depth that I wouldn't even consider for a cartoon show to go into. They go into stuff like cross dimensions, parallel universes, stuff like that. And it honestly, watching a couple episodes, it actually made me sit back and think, wow, I am shocked that a children's TV show would actually be clever enough to do the whole parallel timeline, kind of alternate reality type deal. So, yeah, just kudos to Ben 10. Number 4, Samurai Jack. You know, it isn't until right now that I made this list that I finally realized that a lot of the cartoons that I remember as a child focused heavily on the Asian type culture. Weird. But when Samurai Jack came out, I remember being very young. I think I came out when I was probably around 6 or 7. I was pretty young, but I do remember two things about it. I remember thinking it was a different kind of animation, and it was a pretty cool show, but I don't remember becoming completely immersed in it. And number 2, I remember this was probably the only cartoon that my dad was actually enthralled to watch. Like, normally, you know how your parents sit down with you and it's like, okay, let's watch your silly cartoon show or whatever, and they kind of sit through it just because they're parents and they're kind of obligated to. Now, I believe this was the only one where my dad was actually interested in watching. Like, he was actually interested in what's going to happen next. Like I said, I wasn't that enthralled with it at the first when I was a little kid, but later on when, I think it went off the air for a while, and then later on Adult Swim of all things, they started airing reruns probably when I was a little bit older, and that's when I started getting really hyped into it. You know, once again, like what I said with Xiaolin Showdown, Jackie Chan Adventures, it focused more on Asian type cultures, more specifically like the wandering, like Rurouni Kenshin, kind of like the wandering samurai. Jack himself is also a very interesting character. He's just kind of like this wandering, you know, Ronin, I think they're called Ronin, correct me on that, just wandering samurai, you know, just going around seeking adventures. He doesn't even really talk that much in the show, and I think that's what added to the drama so much. But he was such a badass for everyone he fought, and just putting a I love Aku. I love this kind of demon thing that could transform into anything he wanted pretty much, and he was actually pretty clever in that in the first episode when he was about to die, he was actually pretty clever in saying, I can't kill this guy, so I'll just send him into the future. That's actually remarkably clever of an idea for a major antagonist to do if you really think about it. This is another series that it ended in such a way that I'm kind of disappointed by. The last episode was nothing special, and the plot with Aku was never resolved. The plot, if he ever gets back to his own time, was never resolved. But if you haven't seen this, good God, go watch this show. It's just amazing. And that goes for a lot of these, you know. When I was, you know, a little bit younger, I was always worried about, you know, I was worried about, like, when I was 15 or 16, like, watching these shows because how I would be viewed, like, oh, you're watching cartoons and you're, like, in high school. What's wrong with you? You know, once you get to college, it's just like, you know what? Who gives a shit anymore? Hey, if I want to spend my entire weekend watching Invader Zim, I'll spend my entire weekend watching Invader Zim. Number 3. Invader Zim. Okay, this one I was actually kind of conflicted to put on the list because this one is a show that aired on Nickelodeon primarily for humor, but it doesn't really have anything going for it in terms of like different cultures like all the other ones on this list did, but what it does have is a sense of dark humor that has probably not been captured in any Nickelodeon cartoon or possibly any cartoon since. A lot of the series itself can actually be probably summed up in just one sentence. An alien tries to take over the world, comma, but he's not very good at it. That's pretty much it. This is the plot to the show. A young invader named Zim tries to take over the world with his robotic companion Gur, who is probably the funniest sentient robot to ever exist on the face of this planet, and I freaking dare you to argue that claim. Gur is freaking hilarious. To this day, you can walk into stores like Hot Topic or Spencer's and you can see a t-shirt or a hoodie that has a Gur on it with some crazy saying that he would always like to say on the show. Because Gur is a character that just made no sense. He would just say random shit for the sake of saying random shit, and it was just hilarious every time he did it.
You've won! I'm giving myself up to the Earth authorities. It's been nice working with you, Gur. Now self-destruct. Finally!
Actually, now that I think about it, when the creators were making the show, I think they were probably like, okay, for Gur's character model, let's find the most hyper attention deficit disorder 4-year-old we can get, jack him up on sugar and soda, and just record the stuff he says. There's Gur's character model in a freaking nutshell. Probably, and going along with the dark humor thing, probably the episode a lot of people remember in this regard is Dark Harvest, which basically has Zim going around and stealing children's organs for his own desire, for his own needs. And yeah, I will admit that episode's pretty bad, but I think I can one-up it there. There's an episode where Zim comes in he invents a time machine pretty much, and he can only throw pigs back into the time machine, these little rubber pigs. So he throws these pigs back in this time machine to his archenemy Dib's past, and he keeps getting Dib injured in the past, and that eventually results in Dib becoming more injured in the future. Like, he falls off a tricycle when he was 3. In the future, he like changes all of a sudden, so he has like a metal claw for an arm, as one of his teeth's missing. Zim does it again, and he falls off a building. He has like this life support system strapped to his back. He can barely freaking breathe. That was probably the worst in my opinion, but the ending of that episode was so great anyway, it doesn't really matter. Number 2. Magus XLR. Okay, so like I said with my number 10 spot, I'm not exactly into giant mech anime that much anymore, which Magus XLR is clearly an inspiration of. But this show just works with it. It really does, because it gives a giant robot to probably the guy that you most do not ever want to get a giant robot, because he would probably end the world to get a cheesesteak. A lot of the shows on this list had Asian inspirations to go off of, and Invader Zim had dark humor to go off of as kind of a bonus. Magus XLR, yeah, its bonus was just, it's awesome. No, there's really limited stuff I can say about the show, just because it's so funny. It works so well on so many levels, how they have this giant robot, and this kind of like American white trash guy that has to control it and save the world from all these aliens, which I like, because a lot of the episodes aren't not focused on the actual alien threat of the episode. I remember watching the pilot, and the pilot's set up like, okay, here's a hero, here's our villain, and then it takes like 3 or 4 episodes to actually get the villains to do something. I remember that. The first few episodes of the first season are just focused on other alien threats. And this is the question I have to ask to every single person that loved this show as a child. How could they cancel this after 2 seasons? 2 seasons! That's all it got! Granted, it was a kick-ass 2 seasons, and I still watch these episodes today, but 2 seasons, really. That same thing with Invader Zim, too. It only got 2. Maybe because that was because of the dark humor, I can kind of understand that. It was a little bit more, intense for younger viewers. But Magus XLR, it was I think this aired on Toonami, so it was more intended for a little bit more older audiences, like, like around the 10 to 13, 14, age group. And it worked really well. I'm still trying to figure out the mystery of how it got canceled. And as I know, there's no, except with Xiaolin Showdown, I don't see any of these shows getting a major reboot in the future, so I really can't tell you. But if you have not seen this, go watch it right away. It's kind of beyond words. My personal recommendations are episode 3. I think it's episode 3 with Coop just trying to go and getting a slushie while this alien's wrecking the entire city, because that's one of the most funniest things I've ever seen as a child growing up, and as a anime reviewer on YouTube right now. So yeah, go see that. And the number 1 most badass American cartoon is... Okay, you probably guessed this already. So let's say it together now, children. Avatar: The Last Airbender. And kind of like with Magus, is there really anything with this show I cannot say that people have already stated just how cool and awesome and epic and radical and tubular and just freaking... I've run out of, expressive verbs, but still, this is awesome. This show, along with Ben 10, came out when I was a little bit later into the point of watching Nicktoons. I think it came out in 2005, but I don't care. This was the only Nicktoon that I still watched all the way through, even to Season 3 until its very end in 2008. It was just that epic. And in case you guys are curious, and I think I've stated it before, but yes, I'm loving Legend of Korra. I think we all are. And you know, I think that's a great thing about Avatar: The Last Airbender of what it did. If all these other series have this different stuff going for it with the different cultures and the different kinds of humor, what Avatar: The Last Airbender had for it was it finally bridged the gap between what a cartoon could be just for children, and it can also be for adults as well. Because I know plenty of people that are over the age of 20 or 30 that love this show. I know plenty of children that love this show. And I think that is just an amazing thing, that transcendent, that this show could do. Because before that, anything that aired on Nickelodeon, anything like that, you know, that's for kids, that's for children. You can't, you know, that's for that. You watch it when you're a little kid, you grow up, you don't even go back to that channel ever more. But Avatar changed that, and it's just something that I can't express into words. So I'm pretty sure all of my fans anyway have probably seen this show. I don't even think I have to say go watch it. But if you haven't, if you just came from this planet from a different galaxy, no, not even a different galaxy. If you came from this universe, from a parallel universe where life is less cool because Avatar does not exist, watch that shit right now. Bye. List is over. But anyway, thanks for everyone for watching my video. I had a lot of fun doing this, I really did. So my next video will be more focused on just English dubbed anime, the good and the bad. One Piece 4 Kids dub. But, you know, just thanks for everyone watching my video. Tekking101 signing out. And have a good election day, I guess. I guess no one really has a good election day. There's always a handful of losers and a handful of winners. But this is why I'm not involved in politics.